Okay, let's do one more example. So example 2 says that a tax collector wishes to see if the mean values of the tax-exempt properties are different for two cities. The values of the tax-exempt properties for the two random samples are shown. The data are given in millions of dollars. Alpha is 0.05. Is there enough evidence to support the tax collector's claim that the means are different? Okay, so step 1, we will state our hypotheses. So the null hypothesis is going to be that mu1 equals mu2. Okay, that's not the claim. The claim is not that they're the same. The claim is that they're different. Okay, so for the alternative, we'll say that mu1 is not equal to mu2, and we'll label that one as the claim. Step 2, well, here we see that we have the raw data actually given to us. So since we have the data, we need to put the data into two separate lists in our calculator. So if you've got your calculator, definitely, you can pause this video, go ahead, put city A into L1, city B into L2. It doesn't matter what order you put the numbers in within each list, just make sure you don't skip any. So pause this, go ahead and do that, and then hit play when you're done. Okay, so once you have those in your list, then you're going to go to the same place we just were, so to sample t-test, and now you want to highlight data and click enter. Okay, and it's going to give you a list of things to fill out. You really don't have to put much in here, so your calculator should already have list 1 as L1, list 2 as L2. If for some reason, that's wrong, then you can change it. Both frequencies should already be 1. You're never going to change those, always just leave them. Make sure that you select not equal to mu2 and click enter on that one. Pooled, again, don't touch that, keep it on no, and then go to calculate. Okay, and then you'll get a p-value when you round it to 4 decimal places of 0.3582. And step 3, we're going to compare our p-value with the level of significance. So since 0.3582 is greater than 0.05, that means that we do not reject the null hypothesis, which means that there is not enough evidence to support the claim. Okay, and then we have just one more thing to talk about for today, so that's confidence intervals for the difference between two means, so we can also do those. For independent samples, we're going to go to 2 sample t interval. Okay, so before, when we were doing the hypothesis test, it was 2 sample t-test. If you're going to find a confidence interval, it's 2 sample t-int, so int for interval. Okay, and this is helpful whenever you're hypothesizing a difference of 0. So you actually don't have to go through the whole hypothesis test thing, because you can just do a confidence interval and make your decision based off of that. So you have one of two things that can happen, or will happen. If the interval contains 0, then that tells you that the null hypothesis should not be rejected. And if it doesn't contain 0, then the null hypothesis is rejected. Okay, so example 3 says find the 95% confidence interval for the data in example 2. Okay, now this question, it does specifically say a 95% confidence interval, but I just want you to be aware, and we have talked about this before, but be aware that it might not always specifically give you that percentage. So this question could very well have left that out, and it could have just said find the confidence interval for the data in example 2, or it might say something like find the corresponding confidence interval, something like that. Okay, so it does not have to actually give you the 95%. You should be able to figure that out on your own. So remember, your confidence level is tied to your level of significance. So since the level of significance in example 2 was 0.05, then the confidence level is going to be 1 minus that, so 0.95 or in other words, 95%. Okay, so as long as you know that, then you're just going to go to toSample tint, and you'll go to data because example 2 is about the raw data. So I'm assuming you already have those lists in your calculator, so that's great. You'll just fill out that stuff that comes up on the screen. It should be self-explanatory now. And then when you click calculate, you're going to get a lower bound and an upper bound of negative 58.64 and 22.264. Now, this confidence interval, what it's actually finding is, the boundaries for the difference between the two means. Okay, so for the notation in the middle of our confidence interval, it's going to be mu1 minus mu2. Okay, so we think that the difference between the two will be between those two values. Now, as far as how this helps us actually make a decision about the null hypothesis, all you have to do is just see whether or not 0 is in your interval. Okay, so if it switches from a negative number to a positive number, then 0 is obviously in the interval. Okay, so 0 is in this interval, so we'll say that since 0 is in the interval, the null hypothesis is not rejected. Now, on your questions on Connect and definitely on your test, you're going to be asked whether or not that agrees with the hypothesis test decision. So if you look back at example 2, step 3, we said do not reject the null. Okay, so that's the same decision either way. So we'll say that this agrees with example 2.